Hey Carolyn, this is just a quick summary of what I want you to watch. I got your whole sparring session from today, or depending what time you see this, yesterday. I've only put a little commentary on the first two rounds, and I only put a little slow motion in the first two rounds because that kind of highlights everything that I want you to take a look at. But real quickly, it's just a few issues, kind of the same issues that you've been having. Uh, One of them is that your stance is too wide. I think that what happens every time you kind of jab, you kind of like dip with a wider stance, and that's kind of telegraphing, letting the person know that your jab is coming. Another thing that you're doing is that half the time your hands are like this. You're like this, especially when you spar with the guy. I don't know what his name. You do a lot actually with Margarita. Your hands are down here. With Margarita, you tend to go even lower. So you go down and you get down to her level, so you're bringing your face forward. So when you watch the videos, take a look at that. One of the things I think you're having an issue with is that your distance, your sense of distance is off. And you'll see I'll show you in the video in slow motion. A lot of times you're jabbing and you're about that far off away from your opponent. And you're kind of giving them your distance. So if they see you jabbing out here really far, they're not even worried. They wait for you to get closer, and when you got your hands down here, that's why you're having a hard time landing it. They're kind of, it's hard for you to land because you're not doing a good job of getting in closer. You have to close that distance a lot more, almost about a foot, and then start your jab, so it doesn't have to travel as long. Your sense of distance is kind of off. Also, when you're going in, you're not moving your head as you're coming in to get to close your distance. I think what happens is if you feel kind of awkward, and when you get close, you kind of do this and you kind of freeze up. You have no head movement, and they kind of sense that, and they're throw jabs at you, and then you're kind of blocking it like this, or you're doing this, so you're not comfortable. I think if you got to do a couple things. One, if you know you want to get closer, you better start moving your head and have your hands right here for defense, so you can close the distance and not get hit. So you're moving, you're not a stationary target. If you just walk in like this and then try to jab to close your distance and then jab, they're going to hit you because your head's right there. But if you're moving like this and you're moving side to side and then you jab, they have to guess where your head is and they're uncomfortable, and you could get a little closer and then start your jab. Um, Another thing too is a lot of times when you're trying to parry, you're sticking your hand out to parry out here, and then you're jabbing. So even if you land your jab, your right hand's out here, and you can't do anything with it. So a lot of times it looks like you're kind of like searching with your jab. That's what I call searching, and you're probing, but you have no plan of what you're gonna do with the right hand. So a lot of times you're just jabbing, and you get stuck out here, and you're like this, and they're kind of sensitive. Like Margarita senses it pretty good, and she'll kind of counter you on it. So I'm gonna get right into the video and show you. So we're gonna start uh, um, with this guy right here. One of the things, the first clip I'm gonna show you in slow motion, I'll show you twice, is how far back you are with your distance. Like you end up diving and you're too far back, and then when you jab, you're taking a really long step and you're reaching in. Like right there, you're doing a pretty good job with your head movement, so you're not a target. But it seems that you kind of forget the head movement, and your head stays in the middle, and you're real stationary. Another thing too is that you're always lowering your head before you jab. Not always, but a majority of the time. So right here, you got kind of caught off guard because, well, we're gonna get to that part of the video I'm telling you about where you're. This is where you're not judging your distance. Look how far off you are. And when you jab, look at, you're about a foot away from. He just kind of freezes like, what's going on? He's like, you're jabbing from so far away. And you'll see right here, you'll lower your level, and that's what you're telegraphing. Look how far you are. And then you also automatically jump back after these jabs. So you kind of know you're far, and then you jump back. So even him, he kind of sits there realizing that you're kind of far away. It's kind of awkward. And when you watch these videos and you go back, look for what I'm trying to discuss with you and show you. Take a look in even in the other rounds when you're sparring with Margarita. I just wanted to show you how you kind of like dive in there. That's the only thing I was trying to show you there. A lot of the review we're gonna do in the first 2 rounds with when you're sparring with this guy. You saw how kind of far you are. You get low, you step back, you jab, you step back. Look how far you are. You're not even close with the jab. That's why you're not landing those combinations. Also, too, what I wanted to show you here is when you're jabbing, you're still bringing that elbow. I'm gonna pause it. What you're doing is you're still going like this. Your elbow comes out, and then you're going like that. So that lifting of the elbow is part of the telegraph. So when you combine that with being too far away, you're telegraphing it. You have no chance of landing it. You'll see your elbow kind of snaps. Watch. It goes up, and then your elbow snaps like this. And look where your hands are right there. They're not to the sky. So how you bring it back, and I'll look at out, and then it snaps. You'll see it better from this angle. And I'm gonna go back a little bit, and you'll see when you throw that jab, when you throw the 1-2, look how far. See how far the stance is, and the jab's not even out yet. If you look at your hand, your left hand where the jab, you're already bringing your right hand back. The jab isn't even all the way out, and look how far your stance is. And then see how you lifted that right elbow. Those are all telegraphs that it's going to cause you to never be able to land on a kind of experienced fighter because you got too many tells. So you kind of get really far away, and then you kind of dive in with a 1-2 from really far. By the time you bring up the elbow, he gets a chance to see everything. And that's just what I'm trying to show you here is that you're kind of searching a lot with the jab and you're lowering your level. And then when you're throwing, because you're lowering your level, you get your legs kind of wide, you end up bringing your face in and you lose your distance, and that's why you get countered. See how close you are with the face, you brought it in. Here, a reason I'm showing this is I don't think you're snapping the jab enough. Actually, me and Carlos were talking about this earlier today, and that shows you how your elbow's coming out. That's another thing I'm kind of showing here, is how your elbow comes out when you're throwing that jab. You see it? One thing me and Carlos were talking about is that sometimes I think you kind of just paw with your jab, and Carlos says that when I tell you to throw a stronger jab, that you're kind of stepping into it. So what I mean by throwing a snappy jab, I don't want you to like jump into it. What I want you to do is you have your hands up here. Remember, the fists have to be up here, not right here. When you have your hand up here, you would just want to go from this position to straight as fast as you can. You want to snap it. Boom. Boom. You just want to go here and snap. Here and snap. What you're doing is you're going here and then coming forward. So what I like to see from you is a snappier jab. This boom, quick as possible from here, from this position to the straight position. So Carlos says, not to say throw it hard, but to I try to remember the term. He'll tell you, but we're trying to come up with a better way. So we don't want to say stronger jab because we think that you're getting confused and stepping in with it. What I want you to do is snap it out without. Don't try to throw fast. Don't try to step into it. Just get it from here out as quick as possible. So right here, you're just kind of pawing with the jab. You got to use it more as a weapon. You got to remember, so your head's not moving anymore. You got no head movement. And that's one of the problems that you're having. Without the head movement, your head's in the middle. It's kind of easy to counter you. So you're stepping in from a long distance with the jab. You're leading with the face. And you're also kind of pushing that right hand out as you're jabbing sometimes. When you're sparring, pay attention to where your hand position is when you watch the video to see how many times you have your hands down here. I really want you to look at that. And how many times you go lower before you jab. Like you lower your level. And that's a tell. It's how you bring your face in. That's kind of like you're kind of telegraphing it. Every time you jab, you go down. And you bring the face forward. You're going to get countered because you're bringing your face to the target. And you're still pulling your right hand back before you throw it. That was some good feints right there. I like those feints. I think you need to do that a lot more, but be a little bit sharper with it. Right here, I just think you're kind of bringing your face down too low, and your face is coming too close to the target, to your opponent. I mean, and it looks like you're vulnerable there, and you're pawing with that jab, and you keep bringing that elbow up when you jab. He's just not countering. He's kind of taking it easy right now, but you're there to be countered. You got to snap that jab out a lot more, and get more feints and head movement. One of the things you want to do is when you're going to go in, if you're going to get in and try to close the distance to get to a distance where you can hit the guy, you don't want to stop your head movement. You don't want to sit there and sit there and try to time him from this position. You want to get some feints, head movement, and feint him. And then when you get, meanwhile, you bring your foot in a little bit closer, and then you jab. When you spar with Margarita, the very first 30 seconds, I'm going to replay it. Watch her. I'm going to remind you again. That's what she does a lot. She moves her head a lot. She's not being the target. So what happens, I think, what you do is you kind of, either you forget to do your head movement. When you're thinking of getting offensive, you get your head in the middle, and you don't have any head movement. So I think you feel vulnerable. So you end up stepping further back, and that's when you start to dive. If you want to get in, You got to get the head movement, get the feints in and out. You got to change your distance and get a little rhythm. And then when you feel that you could attack, you get in with the head movement and then you start to jab. If you watch yourself right here, your head's always in the center, hardly any head movement. And you see him, he's moving his head a little bit to the left and right so that you make it a little bit harder for you to hit him. That's what you want to do. Some feints right there, but you led with the face a little bit. Now watch this first 30 seconds. We're gonna watch. I want you to watch Margarita. How she uses her feints. She uses her head movement. She changes her angle. What I want you to watch with her is how when she comes in, she's got her hands up here. You hardly ever see her fists like this. She's using her head movement so that you can't feel comfortable to throw a jab at her. She changes her distance. She uses her feints. She also loses the lean back. So if you think of her head's always moving here, 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 and she has her hands there for defense. So since she's shorter than you, she has to have a harder time. It's going to be a harder time for her to try to hit you with the jab because she has to, you have a distance advantage on her. You have a length advantage on her. But the way she makes up for that is with her timing and her feints, and she makes you feel uncomfortable throwing the jab because you feel like you can't hit her. Now take a look and see what she does. There she's using the hands for the defense. The head movement so that she gets you guessing with the jab, how she keeps moving her head around. Hands up there for the defense. He goes a step back to changing the distance. Feint, step back. Feint, step back. She gets the foot in. Head movement. Angle change. A little bit of head movement, a little bit of feinting. See, it goes to feint again. That's the kind of cat and mouse game you got to start picking up yourself. Look at, that's how she was able to sneak in and get a little closer to you. I just wanted to pick that moment because that was one of the easier moments to see like a variation of all her moves. There goes the head movement again. This height change in her head. Side step. So how she uses all those combinations. And that's what you want to start doing. But you're going to do it as a taller person up here. Boom, boom, bam, and then throw the jab from out there. With her, you tend to, because she's shorter, you tend to put your hands down here. You don't have the fist to the sky. Especially when you spar with Margarita, watch how often your hands go into this position instead of right here. Also watch how often you lower yourself to her level. So you're lowering yourself on her level, and she's kind of playing the cat and mouse game. Cat and mouse game. Angle changes, her feints, her head movement. That left hand is what your problem is. It's hanging down too low. Tell those hands are low. You can't have them that low. Another thing too, when you're jabbing, you don't have a purpose with your jab most of the time. Your combinations are going to be limited as you're learning. So for you, it's more of jab, jab, 1, 2. You got to be thinking of how am I going to land the right hand. What happens? I think you throw too many jabs, or you step in a straight line, and what happens is you're bringing your right hand up because you know you're coming in with a straight line, and she's almost out jabbing you, and even when you throw your jab, you're like this. So if you land your jab and your hands out here, you can't throw the right hand. You're going boom, boom. You say you get close enough to land the jab, but your right hand's out here. You can't throw the right hand, and that's one of the problems you're having. That right hand should be right here. If you're gonna come in, you should be thinking head movement, feint, and then jab, jab. And as soon as you know you're close enough and you touch with the jab, from right there you should be pushing the right hand and getting your head over. What you're doing is kind of pushing your hand out here. That's why you can't throw the right hand, even if you get that jab landed or almost landing. So it's coming out. You're using it too much on defense, I think. Look where it's at. And you'll see it as you're going in. You're kind of doing two things at once. You're bringing the right hand forward. See it? And if you watch Margarita, I'm going to bring it back a little bit. As you watch Margarita, she's keeping her hand closer to her face when she blocks. So this way she could counter jab and use her right hand also. See, we got that right hand? That's one of the, I'm going to practice up a few times. That's one of your problems is that you're getting like this, and you're taking away the right hand, and you're becoming a one-handed fighter. You gotta leave it right here, boom, boom. If the jab reaches, you have to have it close to your face. One of the things you're doing is you're bringing it here, and it's just, that's why you can't use your right hand. See how long that your footwork was. You're overstriding. Your hands are down. What I want you to do is watch Margarita in this sequence. Watch her in this sequence. What I want you to see with her is how she's using her head movement, her lean back without moving her feet. So she's able to change the distance so she feels safe to not get hit by leaning back. A lot of times when you're trying to change your distance, you're doing it with your feet and you're stepping back. Now you're too far away. Once she gets her left foot established, she's leaning back, she's moving her head, she's using her right hand for defense right here, and she's trying to get closer to you to counter you because she's shorter. Now watch what she does. Watch, she's gonna lean back a couple times. It's right there how she leans back. She doesn't step too far back. There she goes, getting her angle change. So she does a little step back, but doesn't bring the left foot too far back. There goes the lean back I'm talking about. You see that? You see how you're leaning forward? She's leaning back. You've leaned forward and brought your face closer. She's leaning back, feeling safe. That's how your face. That's why she was able just to push the jab out. There goes the lean back again with the counter jab. She's setting up the counter jab. So you're kind of overstriding. That's the only thing we really got to work on. One of the things I want you to watch when we're gonna replay that is kind of watch what Margarita does, and you can learn from it. Also, watch when you move your head a little bit more, how she doesn't throw the jab. So what I'm trying to get to is that you got to start moving your head and change the distance from Margarita or whoever you're sparring with, so that they don't feel comfortable timing you. You have to give your feints, move back, get in, have your hand right here, long snappy jabs, make it more of a guessing game for her. So this way, you want to incorporate a little bit what she's doing and use that against her. So this way, you're not always coming in a straight line. Because I think what you're doing is when you're attacking, you're just kind of always head in the middle, and she's the one that's doing this, getting angle changes, stepping back, getting you to lean forward, and that's what's causing the problems for you, I think. So she's moving her head left, right. She's the one controlling the distance change off of her feints, her lean backs. That's a good counter jab by you. Caught her hooking. That was good. You saw she when she stepped back. I'm gonna show you again. You saw when she steps back and she leans back. When she steps back and leans back, she's getting you. She's sensing that you're coming in, and when she leans back, you're reaching for the jab, and that's when she starts to counter. You see it? I'll show you again. See that lean back right there? And now your momentum's coming in. Now look where you're at when you land.
What?
I'm recording.
Oh.
That's all right. So when you go through the rest of the video, because that's pretty much it, really pay attention to how many times you had your hands down here, how many times you stopped moving your head before you went in, and see how better you look once you, because a lot of times you do start to move your head, you kind of remember, I'm going to move my head, you give some feints, and you see how much better you look when you do that. So when you're moving, you're feigning, you got your hands right here, you're not doing this, that's when you look a lot better. So I just wanted to highlight when you're doing it wrong, so this way you could see it, but when you watch the rest of the sparring, you could see when you do it sometimes right, and when you do it wrong, you can learn from that.